Egyptian officials announced Tuesday the discovery of the tomb of King Thutmose II. This marks the last of the lost tombs of the kings of ancient Egypt's 18th dynasty.
For 500 years, this royal tomb stayed locked away from the world. No footsteps, no light, no air inside. When archaeologists finally opened it, they expected history and treasure. Instead, something happened that made them stop instantly and seal it again. What could be so powerful that even modern experts chose to walk away? Join us to find out. A royal tomb, sealed for 500 years. For more than 500 years, a royal tomb slept in silence beneath layers of earth and stone. Time passed above it as kingdoms rose and fell. Wars were fought and new cities grew. Yet below the ground, nothing moved. The air stayed trapped. The darkness remained complete. This tomb was not just old. It was untouched, protected by fear, respect, and strict royal orders that warned people never to disturb it. Many believed it was safer to be left alone, not because of monsters or magic, but because it held a powerful story that history had chosen to forget. The tomb belonged to a ruler whose name slowly faded from daily memory. Long ago, this royal figure was feared, admired, and obeyed. They ruled during a time when power was shown through gold, stone, and silence. When the ruler died, their burial was done with extreme care. Skilled workers sealed the tomb using heavy stones and secret methods meant to last forever. Guards were placed nearby for years. Later generations were told never to open it. Over time, the reason for this warning became unclear, but the rule stayed strong. As centuries passed, stories replaced facts. Some said the tomb held rare treasures. Others whispered that something inside was wrong, unfinished, or dangerous. Elders passed down soft warnings to younger people, telling them that the tomb was not meant for curious hands. Still, curiosity never truly dies. Historians searched old records and found mentions of the tomb hidden deep in forgotten texts. Archaeologists studied the land and realized that this place had never been explored with modern tools. Slowly, the idea of opening the tomb returned. Experts explained that this discovery could change what we know about royal life long ago. The tomb was from a period with missing pages in history. Objects inside could explain how rulers lived, how they were buried, and what they believed about death. After many discussions, permissions were granted, careful plans were made, cameras, safety tools, and specialists were brought in. Everything was done calmly and respectfully. No one rushed, because everyone understood they were stepping into a moment frozen for 5 centuries. As the team prepared, emotions ran high. Some felt excitement, others felt quiet fear. Standing before a sealed royal tomb is not like opening a box. It feels like knocking on history's door without knowing who or what might answer. The stone covering had not been touched since the day it was placed. Even the smallest movement could change the air inside forever. Scientists explained that once opened, the tomb could never return to its original state. The first signs of the tomb's presence were marks in the ground and carefully laid stones. These were not random. They showed planning, power, and intention. As workers removed layers of soil, the shape of the entrance slowly appeared. The deeper they went, the quieter the site became. Conversations lowered, movements became slower. Everyone felt the weight of the moment. This was not just about discovery, it was about responsibility. Opening the tomb meant waking something ancient, not in a scary way, but in a meaningful one. It meant allowing the past to breathe again after centuries of silence. The team knew that once the seal was broken, history would no longer be sleeping. Whatever waited inside would soon be part of the present, and there would be no turning back. As tools touched the final layer of stone, the air felt heavy. Cameras rolled, hands trembled slightly. The tomb that had stayed closed for over 500 years was finally about to reveal its truth. No one yet knew that what came next would stop everything and force the tomb to be closed again almost as soon as it was opened. Why archaeologists finally broke the seal. The decision to finally break the seal did not happen suddenly. It came after years of quiet debate, careful research, and pressure from historians who believed this tomb held answers that could not be found anywhere else. Old maps, royal records, and fragile handwritten notes all pointed to the same place. They spoke of a burial carried out in secret, guided by unusual rules that did not match other royal traditions of that time. This difference alone made experts pause and look closer. Archaeologists explain that this ruler lived during a confusing period when power shifted quickly and trust was rare. Many records from that era were destroyed, lost, or never written at all. Because of that, large parts of history felt incomplete, like a story missing its middle pages. The tomb, still sealed and untouched, offered a rare chance to fill in those gaps. Inside could be objects, symbols, or designs that explained how this ruler saw the world and how they wanted to be remembered. Modern technology also played a role. Experts believed they now had the tools to open the tomb safely without damaging its contents. Special equipment could control airflow, light, and temperature. Tiny cameras could look inside small openings before full entry. Scientists felt more confident than ever before. They believed that with enough care, they could protect both the tomb and themselves. This belief slowly overcame the fear that had kept the tomb closed for centuries. Still, not everyone agreed. Some local communities felt uneasy. For generations, they had lived beside the tomb, treating it with respect and distance. To them, it was not just a historical site, it was part of their identity and memory. Elders warned that disturbing it could bring trouble, not because of magic, but because it would break a promise made long ago. They believed some things were meant to stay buried. Officials listened, but history often moves forward even when it feels uncomfortable. Agreements were made to document everything carefully and to stop immediately if anything felt wrong. The excavation team promised transparency and respect. They assured everyone that the goal was knowledge, not treasure. Nothing would be taken lightly, and nothing would be rushed. As the day approached, the team reviewed every step again and again. Medical experts were on standby in case of harmful gases or ancient bacteria. Preservation specialists prepared materials to protect fragile objects. Every person involved understood the weight of the task. This was not about fame or headlines. It was about touching a moment that had been locked away longer than any living memory. When the final approval came, it felt quiet rather than celebratory. There was no cheering, only deep breaths and focused faces. The tomb had waited 500 years. It would not care if it waited one more day. That thought stayed with the team as they returned to the site. Standing before the sealed entrance, many felt a strange mix of pride and nervousness. They were about to do something no one had done since the ruler was laid to rest. The stones before them were placed by hands long gone, for reasons that still were not fully understood. The past and present felt close, almost touching. No one yet realized that the reason this tomb had stayed closed for so long was not only tradition or fear. It was something hidden inside, something that would soon force everyone to stop, step back, and question whether opening it had ever been the right choice. Ancient warnings no one took seriously. Long before the first modern tool touched the ground, warnings already existed, quietly woven into history like faded threads. These warnings did not shout or threaten. They appeared softly in old writings, damaged scrolls, and half-lost royal notes that most people ignored. Many of these records were written in careful language, urging future generations to show restraint. They spoke of rules, not fear, and responsibility, not punishment. Yet over time, as memories faded, these messages were treated as symbols rather than instructions. Some historians later explained that the ruler buried in the tomb lived during a tense and fragile era. Trust was rare, and danger often came from within royal walls. Decisions were made quickly, and mistakes carried heavy consequences. Because of this, royal burials were sometimes used not only to honor the dead, but also to protect the living. The way this tomb was sealed, guarded, and hidden suggested that it served a deeper purpose than remembrance alone. Local traditions also carried their own quiet cautions. Elders told children never to play near the site. Farmers avoided digging too close. These habits were passed down without clear explanations. People simply followed them because their parents and grandparents had done the same. Over generations, these actions became customs rather than conscious choices. No one questioned them deeply, and no one expected that one day they would be challenged. As archaeologists studied the area, they noticed strange patterns. The tomb's location did not follow common royal burial layouts. It was placed farther away, deeper underground, and sealed with uncommon materials. Some symbols carved into nearby stones did not match the time period. Experts debated their meaning, but many dismissed them as decorative or ceremonial. The idea that these markings were warnings felt outdated in a world driven by science and logic. Modern thinking played a role in pushing doubt aside. Many researchers believe that earlier societies often exaggerated danger to protect valuable sites from looters. They assumed the warnings were simply clever ways to scare people away. From this point of view, fear was not real, only useful. This belief slowly weakened respect for the old messages. What once felt serious became something to analyze rather than obey. As planning continued, a few voices spoke up with concern. Some researchers questioned why so much effort had been made to keep the tomb sealed. They wondered why records about this ruler stopped so suddenly after their burial. Even royal family trees seemed to skip details. These gaps were unsettling, but curiosity was stronger. The need for answers pushed doubt into the background. During preparation, environmental experts tested the soil and found it unusually dense around the tomb. This suggested intentional layering, not natural buildup. It was as if the builders wanted to create a barrier rather than a resting place. Still, this detail was treated as architectural skill, not a sign of caution. Confidence in modern safety methods continued to grow. As the excavation team gathered, conversations sometimes turned quiet at night. A few members admitted feeling uneasy, though they could not explain why. Standing near the sealed entrance felt different, heavier. Some said the air felt still, even when wind moved through the site. These feelings were brushed aside as nerves. After all, history had trained people to fear the unknown, and this was simply another unknown. When the final checks were completed, the warnings of the past felt distant and soft. Written words from centuries ago seemed small compared to modern machines and knowledge. The belief that everything could be controlled filled the space where caution once lived. No one believed they were making a mistake. They believed they were finally listening to history, not ignoring it. Yet history had already spoken. It had whispered through silence, patterns, and absence. It had asked for patience and respect, not curiosity alone. The warnings were never dramatic. They were calm and steady, waiting to be noticed. But in a world eager for discovery, quiet messages are often the easiest to overlook. As the team prepared to open the tomb, those ancient cautions faded completely into the background. The focus turned to the moment ahead, to the answers waiting inside. No one realized that the warnings were not meant to stop the opening forever. They were meant to prepare people for what would happen next, for a discovery that would force everyone to pause, retreat, and seal the tomb once more. The moment the tomb was opened, the day the tomb was opened began quietly, almost gently, as if the land itself was holding its breath. The sky was clear, and the early light fell softly over the excavation site. There was no celebration, no dramatic countdown. Instead, there was focus. Every person present understood that this moment had been 500 years in the making. What they were about to do would change the tomb forever, even if only for a short time. The team moved with careful steps. Tools were checked again and again. Cameras were placed at different angles to capture every detail. Specialists stood ready, each responsible for a single task. Some monitored air quality, others watched for movement in the stone. No one spoke loudly. Even simple instructions were given in low voices. It felt less like a work site and more like a place of deep respect. The final stone seal stood before them, wide and heavy, its surface worn smooth by time. Marks carved into it were still visible, though their meaning had long been forgotten. Engineers explained that this stone had been placed using methods no longer fully understood. It had survived earthquakes, storms, and centuries of pressure from the earth above. Removing it required patience, not force. As the first tool touched the edge of the seal, a strange stillness spread across the site. Dust lifted slowly into the air, glowing in the sunlight. Each movement was slow and controlled. No one rushed. The goal was not speed, but safety. Sensors tracked changes in temperature and gas levels. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen at all. Then, as a small opening formed, something unexpected occurred. A faint rush of air escaped from inside the tomb. It was not strong, but it was noticeable. Scientists had predicted this, yet experiencing it felt different. This was air that had not mixed with the outside world for 500 years. It carried the weight of time, sealed away since the ruler was laid to rest. The team paused immediately. Procedures required them to wait, to allow the air inside to adjust. Small cameras were sent through the opening. Screens lit up, showing the first glimpse of the interior. What appeared was not what many expected. Instead of clear shapes and shining objects, the space looked dark, tight, and unusually preserved. The walls appeared almost untouched, as if time had moved slower inside. As the opening widened slightly, the smell changed. It was not strong or rotten, but unfamiliar. Experts exchanged looks. This was not the scent usually found in ancient tombs. Monitors began showing small but sudden changes in air readings. Nothing dangerous yet, but enough to raise concern. The team remained calm but alert. More dust drifted out, and with it came fine particles that floated longer than expected. Specialists quickly adjusted their masks. The particles did not match known materials from similar sites. This was strange, but still not alarming. At least, not yet. The cameras moved deeper, revealing the outline of a burial chamber. Inside, objects were arranged carefully, more neatly than usual for a tomb of that age. There were fewer decorations, but greater precision. Everything seemed intentional. The position of the chamber suggested planning beyond tradition. It felt controlled, almost guarded, even without living protectors. As footage continued, one expert noticed something troubling. Certain surfaces appeared sealed within sealed spaces, layered in a way that was uncommon. This suggested that even within the tomb, separation had been important. The idea that the builders wanted to contain something, not just protect it, slowly took hold. At this point, the team leader ordered another pause. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of equipment. Everyone sensed a shift. What began as a historical opening now felt like an unfolding question. Were they looking at a resting place or a barrier? The decision was made to open the seal just a little more. But the moment the gap widened, alarms sounded softly. Readings changed faster this time. Still not deadly, but unstable. Experts could not immediately explain the data. The past was reacting to the present in a way they had not planned for. No one panicked, but the mood had changed completely. Excitement gave way to caution. The realization settled in that this tomb was not behaving like others. Something about it resisted being opened, not through force, but through design. And as the team prepared to decide their next move, it became clear that this opening would not last long. The tomb had revealed enough to demand answers, but also enough to warn that it was not ready to be fully disturbed. The discovery that stunned everyone. As the narrow opening remained under control, the focus shifted fully to what the tomb was quietly revealing. The screens showed a space that felt strangely untouched, as if time had slowed down the moment the tomb was sealed. Most ancient chambers show clear signs of age, cracks, stains, or collapse. This one did not. The walls looked firm and smooth, and the inner space felt carefully protected rather than abandoned. That alone unsettled the experts, because it challenged everything they expected from a burial this old. The materials used inside were unusual. Specialists noticed layered surfaces that seemed designed to block rather than display. These were not decorations meant to honor royalty. They looked functional, deliberate, and precise. The layers suggested separation, as if the builders wanted to keep different parts of the tomb from touching each other. This kind of planning was rare and raised a quiet question no one wanted to ask too loudly yet. What exactly were they trying to keep apart? As the camera moved deeper, the lack of traditional riches became impossible to ignore. There were no shining piles of treasure, no heavy gold objects placed to impress the afterlife. Instead, there were fewer items, arranged with care and balance. Each object had space around it. Nothing felt random. This suggested the burial was not meant to celebrate power, but to manage it. For a royal tomb, this choice was deeply strange. The central burial area slowly came into view, and that was when concern grew stronger. The ruler's resting place was not centered or open. It was set back, protected by additional stone layers and positioned in a way that made access difficult even within the sealed chamber. This meant the tomb builders expected intrusion, even if it came centuries later. They had planned for disturbance and prepared defenses that did not rely on guards or threats, but on structure and design. At the same time, the monitoring equipment began to show patterns that made no sense at first. Air readings shifted without a clear source. Levels would stabilize, then change again moments later. These were not the slow changes expected from an ancient sealed space. The environment inside the tomb seemed to react to the outside world. Engineers double-checked the sensors, expecting error. None was found. Fine particles continued to drift outward through the opening. Under closer study, these particles did not behave like normal dust. They stayed suspended longer and moved differently in the air. Some experts believe they were part of a controlled sealing method released only when the tomb was disturbed. If that was true, it meant the builders expected future contact and designed the tomb to respond, not collapse. This realization changed everything. The tomb was no longer seen as a passive resting place. It was active in its own way, even after 500 years. The builders had not simply sealed the past. They had created a system meant to endure time and interference. This suggested advanced understanding, not just of construction, but of long-term containment. Tension spread across the site. Voices lowered, decisions slowed. The team understood they were now facing something that could not be treated like a normal excavation. The risk was not dramatic or obvious, but subtle and unknown. That made it more dangerous. Medical specialists warned that ancient materials can affect the human body in unexpected ways, especially when released after centuries of isolation. Even without immediate harm, long-term effects were impossible to predict. One senior expert pointed out another troubling detail. The structure of the inner chamber suggested balance. Temperature, pressure, and air composition appeared carefully maintained over time. Opening the tomb further could destroy that balance completely. If the system failed, whatever the tomb was designed to contain or protect could be lost, damaged, or released in ways no one could control. The mood shifted from curiosity to responsibility. This was no longer about discovery alone. It was about knowing when to stop. The excitement that often drives archaeology was now matched by restraint. The team leader listened to every concern, reviewed the data again, and made a decision grounded not in fear, but in respect. The order was given to halt further opening. This was not done suddenly or carelessly. Procedures were followed step by step. The opening was reduced slowly to prevent sudden changes in air pressure. Materials were used to stabilize the seal without damaging it. Every movement was calm and deliberate, as if the team were apologizing to the tomb for waking it too briefly. As the gap closed, a heavy silence settled over the site. No one spoke. There was no disappointment, only understanding. The tomb had revealed just enough to make its message clear. It was not refusing discovery forever. It was demanding patience. Later analysis described the moment as deeply unsettling, not because of what was seen, but because of what was suggested. The tomb challenged modern assumptions about ancient knowledge. It hinted that people long ago understood containment, risk, and time in ways we are only beginning to grasp. By the end of the operation, the tomb stood almost exactly as it had before. 500 years of silence had been briefly broken and then carefully restored. What lay inside remained mostly unseen, but its presence now carried weight. The discovery did not answer questions. It created them. The tomb was no longer just a piece of history. It became a reminder that some knowledge is guarded not by fear, but by design. And sometimes, the most powerful discoveries are the ones that tell us to step back, listen closely, and wait. Why the tomb was closed again immediately. After the tomb was closed again, the world outside moved forward. But the story inside that sealed space did not fade. News of the sudden shutdown spread quickly, yet details were scarce. Officials released careful statements that said little but hinted at concern. What had started as a proud moment for archaeology turned into a quiet mystery. The silence that followed felt heavier than the centuries of stillness before the tomb was opened. Experts returned to their offices with more questions than answers. They reviewed footage frame by frame, studied sensor data, and compared notes late into the night. Nothing they saw matched known patterns from other royal tombs. The structure, the materials, and the behavior of the environment inside all pointed to deliberate planning far beyond tradition. This was not simply a burial meant to honor a ruler. It felt like a system built to control, protect, or isolate something important. Historians revisited old records with fresh eyes. Details once ignored now seemed meaningful. Gaps in timelines, sudden changes in leadership, and missing references to the ruler after their death stood out sharply. It became clear that this was not forgetfulness. It was removed. Someone long ago had chosen to erase parts of the story, perhaps to prevent questions or fear. The tomb was not hidden by accident. It was placed where it could be left alone. Scientists focused on the unusual particles released during the opening. Tests were slow and careful. Results showed nothing immediately dangerous, but they did not fully explain their purpose. Some believe these particles were part of a sealing method designed to react when disturbed. Others thought they played a role in preserving the inner chamber. Either way, the discovery showed that ancient builders understood chemistry and containment better than previously believed. The decision to reseal the tomb was debated publicly and privately. Some argued that fear was stopping progress. Others believed wisdom had stepped in at the right moment. Archaeology is often about uncovering the past, but it also carries responsibility. Once something is opened, it cannot be undone. The team had chosen caution, and many quietly agreed it was the right choice. Local communities felt a strange sense of relief. For generations, they had lived beside the sealed tomb with respect. Seeing it closed again felt like a promise kept. The elders said little, but their calm reactions spoke volumes. To them, the tomb had always been more than stone and history. It was a reminder that not everything belongs to the present. Still, the mystery refused to rest. Universities requested access to the data. Independent experts offered theories. Some believed the tomb held evidence of a disease sealed away to protect others. Others suggested it was meant to hide knowledge considered dangerous or disruptive. A few even believed the ruler themselves was the reason for the precautions, perhaps buried under special conditions to prevent disturbance. None of these ideas could be proven, but all were taken seriously. Technology continued to improve, raising the question of whether the tomb might be opened again someday. New methods could allow deeper study without breaking the seal further. Remote scans, advanced sensors, and non-invasive tools offered hope. But for now, authorities agreed that time was needed. Rushing back in would only repeat old mistakes. The tomb became a symbol. It reminded the world that history is not just a collection of facts waiting to be uncovered. It is a living story shaped by choices, fears, and values. Ancient people were not naive. They planned, predicted, and protected in ways we are still learning to understand. The idea that the past was simple no longer held up. For the archaeologists involved, the experience stayed with them. Many described a lasting emotional impact. Standing at the edge of something so carefully hidden changes how one sees discovery. It teaches humility. It shows that knowledge is not always meant to be taken all at once. Sometimes it must be earned slowly, with patience and respect. Public interest remained strong, but the lack of clear answers only deepened curiosity. People wondered what could be so important that it stayed sealed for 5 centuries and still resisted exposure. The tomb's brief opening felt like a warning and an invitation at the same time, a reminder that the past speaks in quiet ways and that listening matters more than forcing it open. As years passed, the site remained protected. No new openings were scheduled. The tomb rested once more in darkness, unchanged on the outside, but no longer forgotten. Its story had entered the world, even if its contents had not. Scholars continued to study, debate, and prepare, knowing that one day the right moment might come. Until then, the royal tomb stands as it always has, sealed, silent, and watchful. It carries a lesson that reaches beyond archaeology. Some doors, once opened, demand humility rather than triumph. And some secrets survive not because they are hidden, but because they are waiting for understanding strong enough to meet them. So, what do you make of the sudden closure of this royal tomb? Was it a warning from the past, or a secret too dangerous to reveal? Let this story remind us that some mysteries are meant to be approached with care. Share your thoughts and keep the curiosity alive.